This is where the fun begins.
Are you sure? So be it. Did you miss me?
Well, welcome everyone, and we are meeting for some drinks here. Yeah, I wasn't planning on having any live today as I got home yesterday from my travels with being with family and stuff. That's why you guys didn't see me on Gatekeepers Alliance. I guess you could say I needed to be with family and shit. I wouldn't say shit, but things that was more important during circumstances and stuff like that. But I'm not going to, wallow on that. Here I am. I woke up, I got to sleep in from all this travel to the Midwest. And I was like reading and going through all the stuff that has been happening since I've been gone. Like the latest rumor about Kennedy being gone again, retiring or whatever, and people falling for it once again to George Lucas did a bad job and people defending Kennedy to, a meme going around that's tricking a lot of shills. And so we're going to talk about this. We're going to use Cantina Nights as our Star Wars news type of situation here. Cap Chat is all about, talking about the lore. Yes, we get into cringe factor and Star Wars news, but that's not the whole gist of Cap Chat. Cap Chat is about talking about George Lucas' era of Star Wars and then finding cringe factor to debunk some shit that goes around. So here we are talking here for Cantina Night. And so hopefully you have your favorite Star Wars beverage in front of you, your favorite liquor, Corellian whiskey or Fogblasters or whatever is your favorite drink here today. And let's sit down and let's chat. So a lot of you guys I know are on Twitter and do follow me. So I know you've probably seen my engagements with people regarding what's going on with the latest news with Kennedy and George Lucas doing a bad job and all of this defending and using the EU to defend in a weird way, using the EU to bashing the EU to defend Disney Star Wars, which is quite dishonest if you want to, get down to the nuts and bolts of things and stuff. So let's see who's in the chat. And as we go on and I pull up what we're going to talk about, share with me if you guys know what Star Wars liquor, alcohol drink, resonates with you. I know a lot of people use Corellian Whiskey. That's why I use it a lot. But if you can name other drinks within the Star Wars lore, share with us. I use Fogblaster. That's one from the Legacy era. And it's from Legacy of the Force when Ben Skywalker was meeting the Hapen royal twins. And they were helping him get back to his family and stuff like that. But anyways, so I use Fogblasters. But what other Star Wars liquor can you think of besides like the, anything Corellian? Corellians are freaking awesome people, and even their species are pretty amazing and stuff like that. But they are basically, I wouldn't say conservative, but they are very conservative in their culture, I guess you could say, and their customs and being great pilots. I mean, every single pilot that I've seen so far that has to do with Star Wars. Not every, but I'm just saying a majority or a good handful of our Corellian pilots. And Han Solo being one, Wedge Antilles, and his girls, especially his Sile, his daughter Sile. And you have Corran Horn. So you have all these great pilots that, come from Corellia. But, let's get into the chat right now. Let me see who's all coming in, because I still want to keep this as a place where I chat with those in the chat as well. So Martial Arts Legends is here. Hello there. How are you doing? I'm glad you are here. And so Martial Arts shared with me their favorite era, and I did too. I said Legends. So if anybody wants to answer this question in the chat, feel free to. Then he goes on to say, I can't wait to read Legacy. I've heard nothing but good things about it. And Star Wars Marvel Pierce, thank you so much. One of my mods here. Thank you so much. Matthew is here. George told a story he wanted to tell with the prequels. They wanted to say that is bad. Are they fans? I would say no. Liking a couple of movies doesn't make you a Lucasfilm devotee. And that's the thing. We'll get into what was said about George doing a bad job. When that was said, it wasn't specifically about a trilogy or a couple of movies. Basically, George did bad with Star Wars too. That's the gist of that. So we'll get into that. And the CJH Entertainment Plus is here. Is this thing going around the George Lucas went woke? No, I don't think so, but people are trying to say that. And the Backseater. What's up, Backseater? Hail, OG. How are you doing, Backseater? I am Lucas fan from THX 1138 and Strange Magic. Actually, Lucasfilm, not Kennedy Film. Right on. OG, what was the Chosen One supposed to do in the EU? Was he to destroy the Sith as... I don't see the rest of it, but we'll get to it. Anakin, as the Chosen One, was consistent through the whole entire lore. So what George wanted Anakin as the Chosen One was still held up in the EU, if that's what you're going for. Jordan is here. First, choke the like button and share the stream to all social media platforms. Thanks, guys. And thank you so much for reminding everybody to do that. High five to you. Let's see here. And SW, sorry, Luke UK. Hi, all, or hey, all. And let's see here. Jim the Despot is here. This is a coincidence. This came out after I spent at least 3 days rewatching the prequel trilogy on the Phase Connect Discord server. No, it can't be. And that's the thing. We know that the anniversary will be coming up for Revenge of the Sith. And what I'll say with that is don't give your money to Disney whatsoever. Don't go to the theaters. I know how much, the nostalgic feel of it because it's on the big screen. You know who owns that now? Disney. Put in your DVDs that you have bought pre-Disney and enjoy it at home. You have the freedom of doing a barbecue. You have the freedom of doing it at nighttime and turning off the lights and popping your popcorn and sitting down in the comfort of your own home. You can talk with your family about certain scenes without being hushed in the theaters. There's so much flexibility when you decide to support what George did by not giving Disney money. All right, Vex is here. Sup, everyone. Sup, Vex. How are you doing? And here we go. And let's see. Anakin Batsy is here. Hello. Everybody's coming. We have 43 beautiful souls watching and participating. You guys are amazing. All right. I'm trying to say hello to everybody. If I missed you, that's not... that is not, I'm not doing it on purpose and stuff like that. All right. Let's see here. Anybody else? Iron Inquisitor is here. Lucas is bashed by people, and then they turn around and use his words. Then when it suits them, you got that down to a point. Yes, they will use George Lucas in any way to serve their own narrative. And that's how that is. And so if they need to protect Disney associates like Kennedy in any way, they will do that. And then when they want to defend their Disney Star Wars in any way, they'll use and do an anti-EU approach. They will use Lucas as well. That's their ammo. That's what they do. All right, so let's get into this here. So you guys, everybody knows already that Kennedy, like the rumor was set off by that Puck news, quote unquote news source there. And I spoke about it a little. I tweeted about it while I was away when I seen it going down. And what I did, and this is fucking crazy, you guys, because a lot of people ran with it without further looking into the article, or they went with the Hollywood Reporter saying, because Hollywood Reporter is a more trusted place. It's true, without even realizing that the Hollywood Reporter was going off of Puck's article. And in Puck's article, they had, I was told, or there was 3 sources, but I'm not going to give any name. There's nothing official. And they even said that they tried to reach out and no one wanted to respond in it that was official, that could officially confirm what they were saying. And so a lot of people ran with it like, oh, yay, Kennedy's gone. She's gone. She's finally retiring. Star Wars is saved. All of this bullshit that we've seen at least twice a year. And it's funny because we're closing in on March. So after this, wait until maybe September, maybe October, we'll hear some more. We'll hear another rumor about that. And in that article, basically, she's retiring and she's thinking about leaving by the end of the year. See how that goes? She's thinking. It's a possible retirement. It could possibly happen at the end of the year. But there's no official source confirmation by Kennedy or any of her staff, her officials, or Lucasfilm themselves. See how crazy, see how people just ran with it blindly, causing a stir. No, I'm not pro Kennedy. I'm not pro any of Disney when it comes to Lucasfilm and Star Wars. This is not a defense of her. This is me looking at giving proper information out to you guys. If there's no source that can be verified, then it's bullshit. And we know that already. We've been through this for about how many years now? And counting? And yet people still ran with this shit. I'm like, are you fucking serious? And then, of course, everybody started spewing out, Filoni's going to take over now. It's been confirmed. Or Favreau, he's going to come out. Or even Feige. I was like, wow, they threw Feige in this shit too, huh? Hitting the bong bong, right? And all I'm saying here is, yes, she will eventually retire. And that will come out with an official statement. Until there is an official statement, do not believe anybody who says, I have a source, but I can't give their name out. Or my friends are 3 sources or whatever. They can't verify their source or give you a proper lead. Don't believe that shit. Be more smart about what you hear. What media has proven with the vast majority of people, any people, quote unquote, on our side, is that people are like sheeple. They will believe anything that's said without researching. Don't be that. Don't do that. Do your research. Question everything, especially when it doesn't have a valid source to back it up. And with that being said, I'm going to bring up one thing, and this, I credit Mr. Grizz on this. He brought the video to my attention and a lot of our attention, and he did a great video about it today. But I'm going to go ahead and share first the Twitter post, and then I will share the video. And this goes into George did a bad job too. Now, this is from Grace Randolph. Like I said, I don't do this kind of stuff. Like I don't go and, do talk about news and debunk shit and all this other stuff like extensively on CapChat. This is what Cantina night's for. Like when you sit down with your friends and you sit and talk or gossip about like the latest news and what's going around in your hometown or whatever in your world, I guess you could say. Well, this is what we're doing here. Cantina nights, the proper place to do this. So let's go ahead and bring this up. I'm going to share here. And I'm going to make it a big screen because I like to do that. All right. Chlamydia burns. Oh, you all right. Okay. So I'm going to share this and then I'll share the video with you guys. But I'm going, I wouldn't say backwards on this because this right here is more important to me than her opinion that George did a bad job. Because she's saying some Star Wars fans are rewriting history. Kathleen Kennedy made a lot of mistakes. And we're going to go through all my proof that I shared with what was being said here, are debunking her article here. So I'm going to share this with you, and then I'm going to go pull up that other stuff. I should have just pulled up my thread. You know what? I'm going to go back and do that. Let me go ahead and take this off. I'll pull my quote retweet of hers. That will be a lot more productive on all grounds here. And then we're also going to get into a meme that has been triggering a lot of Disney shills. And then an EU one that was created that people use to bash the EU. So let me see, where is it at? Here we go. I found. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and bring this one up. Okay, this one is more productive on my end. So she's basically saying hashtag Star Wars fans, and then she has the quotes fans in there, are rewriting history. But let me tell you something, Miss Grace Randolph. Star Wars fans would not be bashing George Lucas like you did. Okay? So let's go on with this. Kathleen Kennedy made a lot of mistakes, but as I pointed out the other day, George Lucas was also bullied by fans, and that's partially why he sold Disney. So she's saying, and with this right here, this Hollywood Reporter was back in 2012, and I shared the link on my debunking of her bullshit, but she also shared the link below in her thread. So here it is. So this is what she's saying here. Let me pull this one up. So this is the clip. So this is the beginning. You have the header and then the subheader below. Star Wars creator George Lucas fires back at fanboys. Red Tail snub. And when you read the whole article, it's all about Red Tails and about how the media and Hollywood perceived Red Tail, not necessarily fans. So the filmmaker says he's retiring the sci-fi franchise, quote unquote. This is George's quote. This is what they shared, and I'm going to show you why this is how you don't trust reporters like this, because they'll take something that you said and make it sound like something completely different. They'll misquote you, I guess you can say. And this is a misquote. Why would I make any more when everybody yells at you all the time and says what a terrible person you are? And so this is what Aaron Carlson is saying, and this is January 18th, 2012. This is what this reporter is saying why George is selling the franchise. And I'll go through all of this with you guys. My debunk of this, what Grace said. And this is what she said. And of course she clipped. We all know that, we all clip articles to a point that we want to make. At first, I was like, she's being dishonest because she didn't really share the whole article link so we can all investigate what was really being said in this article, because we all know people who are going to bash George Lucas and pre-Disney Star Wars will also just share certain quotes of an article but not share the link, which is disingenuous. But she did share the link below this thread here, below her thread. So there was Then there was the negative reaction towards the 1999 Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and the subsequent prequels. And this is what George said. On the internet, all those same guys that are complaining I made a change are completely changing the movie, complained Lucas, referring to online video recuts of his film. I'm saying, fine, but my movie with my name on it that says that I did it needs to be the way I want it. So he basically is just countering people and most likely media sources, on the direction that George took, probably with the special editions. But there's no context to this. Like I said, when a reporter has something in mind, they will misquote their interviewee to make it look like it's the fans' fault, not media, not the media source. Like, a Hollywood Reporter is a media source, right? So they'll switch directions on who's at fault, because in the end, we all know George blamed the media critics and Hollywood for a lot of BS that he got for making his film, starting with A New Hope, our Star Wars, right? We all know that. All right, so this is what she pulled up. Let me see here. Let me go to my thread here. This is what I shared, and you guys know me. I try to back up as much as I can with what I say. Now, let me see what you're saying in the chat before I go on. He wanted the Outrider in Star Wars. I'm perfectly fine with that. Correct. As far as I'm concerned, Ahsoka is a non-canon character. Anakin had no Padawan in the Star Wars films. Well, yeah, he had no Padawan in there whatsoever. Lucas and the media hated each other. Correct. And we'll get to this. It's the same they did with the actors. The media went after them and then they blamed the fans. Correct. And I was going through her thread, and we're not going to go through it. And someone would mention, like what they did to Lloyd and Best. So basically, there's still people talking about that rhetoric that was debunked by Best and by Lloyd's family and Lloyd himself. So I find that very disingenuous on their part. Oh, Soul Assassin's here. Yeah. He was hinting around. I woke up this morning and I went back to sleep because I was like, hey, I don't have to do anything. I'm going to go. I don't have to worry about being anywhere today. I'm going to sleep in and let my body recuperate from travel. But he's like, maybe you should go live today because a lot of shit that went down while you were gone. And he's right. But Cat Chat's not the proper place to talk about that. But the Cantina Nights is. So Soul Assassin, hey, what's up, Vato? How are you doing? I got to redo that video clip I did for you and shorten it up a little bit. I like how it is, but I always get a little strike for it, so, but anyways, or whatever it's called. All right, so let's get into this article here. So, not this article, sorry. My quote retweet on debunking what she said. That does not share why he sold, nor has he ever stated he sold due to fans or even critics. In fact, the writer used a quote not pertaining to his retirement as if it does. I shared the article link. He goes on to say he is retiring from running his business. He talks mostly of the reception of red tails in this interview. And he does. That interview in 2012 was regarding red tails. As for the time, January 2012, Bob Iger was still convincing him to sell. It took almost 2 years to seal the deal. All of this info can be found in Bob Iger's biography, researching online, and interviews by George Lucas. The only one rewriting history is you. So this is what I shared from that clip, and I shared the link above from that article. Aside from those projects, Lucas said, I'm retired. I am moving away from the business, from the company for all this kind of stuff. So what? This kind of stuff probably critics criticizing him or not liking his direction, because what he wants to do, what George always wanted to do, and if you go and look in the history of George Lucas and his film career, he wanted to tell and make stories specifically in his way, and not adhere to what Hollywood wants him to do. That's why he broke away from Hollywood. He wanted to tell his own story in his own way, in his own way, and produce it in his own style, which he did groundbreaking stuff along the way, which I find is quite funny because everybody forgets that. Kennedy wouldn't be there in place because of George, I know. But also Kennedy wouldn't have the resources and stuff like that in ILM if George, with people he hired together, making groundbreaking film, groundbreaking feats in film. So I'm going to continue this. He's still reeling from so-called studio snubs of Red Tails. His new film about the Tuskegee Airmen, which he financed himself, spending nearly $100 million after rejects from executives. See, this points exactly what this article is all about and why George is upset. It's not because of fans, it's because of critics, it's because of executives rejecting his movie that he wanted to tell about the Black Airmen, the pilots from that he's telling about in Red Tails, right? So this right here is where she was disingenuous about everything and trying to show that fans that we are the reason why George sold. Yeah, George is an absolute visionary and genius. And he brought in people with the same ideas and the same focus, and together with their ideas and stuff came out and gave Hollywood industry, and I think this is also another thorn in Hollywood industries back, is that George, who they wanted total control. George wouldn't give him control of his vision, his company, his dreams, which then they said a lot of shit about his stuff, right? And his ideas and stuff. He is the thorn in their asses, right? That's how I see it. And Soul Assassin says, I gotta admit, Lucas is probably the only director to fund most of his film. Correct. And when he couldn't, like in the beginning of Star Wars history, he made sure that he paid everything back and he gained some type of control back to those movies. All right. Matthew says, everyone scoffed at me when I compared George to Tolkien. Oh, yeah, that right there, you will get a lot of snobbery when it comes to that. All right, so we'll play this. Let me go ahead and stop you for a minute because I want to get from the beginning. Here is from George's mouth, not an article where the writer can change up George's words. Basically, just requoting him or quoting him in the wrong way, and we see that a lot. Like I said earlier, here he talks about Red Tails. He doesn't speak against fans, but Hollywood analysts and critics. And one reason he sold is due to critics and the system. So let's see here. Let me go back here. Let me rewind that.
You were ahead of your time with Star Wars. Have you been ahead of your time since then?
Well, I haven't directed a movie since then.
I know that.
Producing, I don't know. I was sort of ahead of my time with Red Tails. An all-black film.
But you were the only person who could have got that made somehow.
Well, I paid for it myself.
Daniel Yellow said
they wouldn't distribute it. They wouldn't make it. They wouldn't advertise it.
Because of racism or because of what?
They just said, the market research says nobody will go to that movie.
There you go.
And in Europe, nobody will go see it.
But market research said nobody would go to Star Wars. Market research may have said no one.
Well, but this one was,
okay.
We know there is a certain now, over time, a lot of these issues that were just becoming, they were dimly aware of them, have become institutionalized. Now they know that movie will do well in France. This movie will do well in Denmark. This movie you can't do in Asia. And they got their markets. They know how much of the share they get, and they do their little analysis. And then they say, well, we will or will not make the movie. It has nothing to do with what I do, which is a movie, something people can enjoy.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with that. I made money in spite of myself. And I think I made money because I didn't care. I didn't care whether it was a hit or not a hit. I wanted to make this movie as a movie. And that's the thing that they won't do. And that they can't do it. It's not in their constitution to do that. You know, I have a fiduciary duty to come up with a thing. I got it 10% a year, my stockholders. That's why I would never go public. And that's why I said, I'm not going to be beholden to anybody. And that's why even now with the company, when I sold it, one of the reasons I sold it was I was starting to make movies that were more personal and were obviously losing a lot of money. And I said, I really can't do this much more because the company will be dragged down. And I had 2,000 employees. So I had people to think about. So I said, the best way to handle this is to sell it and then take the money, put it in a bank account. I call it my yacht because a lot of my friends have yachts. I said, I'm not going to buy a yacht, but I'll take the money that I would use to have a yacht and I'll put it in a bank account.
Right.
And I will use that to make movies that I know are experimental, that I have no way of knowing whether they'll work or not, but I want to see if they work. And that means I don't have to show them to an audience. I don't have to have people.
So when are we going to see that?
All right. So right there, that was about Red Tail. So he talks specifically about Hollywood and critics themselves and how basically even Red Tails at the time was groundbreaking because he's telling the story of these group of men that black men that became airmen and stuff, and they were significant to the U.S. Military. And the Red Tails is missing missing a black girl boss with no training and character development. Yeah. So hello, Double A. How are you doing? So he wants to tell that story. He wanted to tell that story. He funded it. He got it out. No one wanted to support him. He still had it go out in the theaters and stuff like that. And it wasn't necessarily a hit, but he still made money off of it. And he told what he wanted to tell. And that's how he approached Star Wars as well. So when Grace Randolph goes and pulls up that article is specifically about Red Tails, but they do go back and revisit when he started making the prequels and stuff and he gets misquoted and his quotes are being misused to direct it towards fans. And so this is just the beginning of what I was saying to her about how she is misrepresenting what George said and how she's the one who's rewriting history. And I'm not saying that there were fans that spoke out against George because of whatever reason they felt that the prequel trilogy or any of the Star Wars movies or anything George created didn't go the way they wanted it to go, because there's going to always be fans like that. I wouldn't even call them fans, right? Because at that point, they don't care about the franchise or the media that the creators created, right? There's always going to be that small bit of people. But this is not like his reason for him selling is not based upon that small group of people. So here's this other one. Let me go ahead and press stop so we can begin at the. I forgot to mention he wanted to prevent his employees from losing jobs too. This clip shares exactly why he sold, and fans weren't the reason. So this gets into his reason why he sold. And let me go ahead and make this a little bigger here.
Now, let me just talk about the upcoming Star Wars, The Force Awakens. How do you feel about it?
Well, it's, I made the decision to sell the company, the Star Wars. I made that decision because I looked at the future. I looked at the fact that I was going to have a baby. I looked at the fact that I was married. And I looked at the fact that I wanted to build a museum. And I looked at the fact that I wanted to make experimental films. So my life was going on a different track. I noticed the last few movies that I'd made were costing the company a lot of money. And I didn't think that was fair to the people that worked there or the company. And so I had made a decision to move ahead on the next Star Wars series, and we were starting to do that.
So you were starting to make the next Star Wars.
Yeah.
You as director, filmmaker.
So, and we were working with a writer. It wasn't quite working out, but I was also, I was also stepping away a little bit and turning things over to Kathy Kennedy. And so what happened was Disney said, gee, or Bob Iger said, gee, if you really want to sell your company, if you're thinking about selling that, because we were talking about retirement and what are you going to do after all this kind of stuff. And he said, well, if you really want to sell it, we're very interested. So that started that ball rolling. And I knew from, and I had the story treatments or, outlines. And we were working on scripts. And so I sold it. But I knew when I sold it, I said, I've tried to make movies where I step away to sort of Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And after about a couple of weeks, I knew I couldn't do that. I had to stand over the shoulder of the director, help him, whisper in his ear constantly, no, do this, do that, and be there to help guide it. And it was much harder than if I just directed it myself.
All right. So this breaks down why he sold. He knows himself. So he knows that that when he tried to step away, when he brought in people like to direct and stuff, he stepped in still and micromanaged and also he helped direct. So even though he's not credited for directing for Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, he helped direct as well. He knows himself. He has to step in and he has to say, do this way. I want this and this and this and this. So he knows that. So even if he would have still remained head of Lucasfilm and not sold, he would have still came in and micromanaged. And so that's exactly why he stepped away. And then Star Wars Marvel appears, says Vice makes it appear George wasn't around the majority of the Empire. No, he was there. And you can even look up like the annotated screenplay of the OT of Star Wars. You can also look into his into the archives, George, the filmography of George Lucas. That all shares how much he has been involved, even when he didn't need to be, because he had brought in people he trusted in a sense. But even if you look behind that, he even had to redirect his directors for the last 2 installments for the OT to go where he wants the story to go. And of course, people say, oh, he's never written, he didn't write or help write the screenplays or anything like that. Yes, he has. That's all documented as well. So a lot of people say the PT, and again, Gracie Randolph in the video that I'm going to share her pretty soon, basically is saying, she didn't specifically say the PT, she basically said George did a bad job with Star Wars. So she made it very ambiguous and open to all of Star Wars. And I have 64 beautiful people, souls in here watching and in the chat. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for Cantina Nights. Even though it's the afternoon, top of noon to you guys. But anyways, going back to the subject here. So he was very, very hands-on. He knew that about himself. And so he knew that in order for him to retire, once the seed was being planted in his ear about retiring, he knew that he needed to bring someone in. He thought he could, I'm saying thought, because at the time he thought he could trust her, and that's Kennedy. He even stated he brought her in. And what I said in this this tweet here is, are in this, basically this quote retreat but rebuttal to Grace Randolph, is that Iger planted that seed in him to sell almost 2 years before the actual sell time. So we know that he signed the papers October 2012. By December, everything was in and underneath Disney's corporate name. So after October, it took a couple of months for everything to legally get resolved and handed over to Disney, basically. So all the legalities had to be taken care of. So here's the clip, and here's my other evidence to how Iger already had in mind pre-May 2011 of inquiring about George selling Lucasfilm to him, to Disney. And so I put that there because the reason why I use this as part of the evidence of what I said is because people make it sound like George was so fucking tired of the fans and so he sold. No. When Bob Iger was talking with George about selling. He was him and his wife were fianced and are engaged. And when him and his then wife, once the agreement of selling came to play, they were talking about having a family. And so we knew that, they had a girl, and they had a surrogate to carry the girl and stuff like that. So there's a little history there. So let me go ahead and rewind this, and we're going to listen to this clip as
When
well.
I went up to Cupertino to talk with Steve about Marvel, he asked if I was looking at anything else. I mentioned Lucasfilm, and he said, "You should just call George." Steve had bought Pixar from George Lucas, and he and George had been close for years. "You never know," he said. "George might be interested. The two of us should go to his ranch and have lunch with him one day." We never did make that lunch. Steve soon became too sick, and his involvement in Disney's business waned. But Lucas had been at the top of our acquisition list ever since we'd completed the Marvel deal. And I'd been thinking about how to approach George in a way that wouldn't offend him, with the suggestion that he sell us the marvelous worlds that he'd created. Michael Eisner had made a licensing agreement with George back in the mid-'80s to build Star Wars and Indiana Jones-themed attractions at our parks. And in May 2011, we were reopening the Star Wars attractions, Star Tours they're called, in Disney World and Disneyland after a year-long refurbishing. I knew George was going to Orlando to rededicate the attraction as a favor to the company and his friends in Imagineering, and I decided to join him. With the occasional exception, I normally leave the opening of new attractions to the head of parks and resorts, but I thought this might give me a chance to at least float the idea with George and get some sense of whether he'd ever consider selling to us. Our relationship went back to my days running ABC Entertainment. On the day of the rededication of Star Tours in Orlando, I set up a breakfast with him at the Brown Derby, which was near the attraction in our Hollywood Studios park. The restaurant doesn't normally open before lunch, but I asked them to set up a table just for us, so we would have privacy. When George and his fiancée, Melody Hobson, arrived, they were surprised to see that no one was there but me. We sat down and had a lovely breakfast, and about halfway through it, I asked George if he'd ever thought about selling. I tried to be clear and direct without offending him. He was 68 years old at the time, and I said, "I don't want to be fatalistic, George, and please stop me if you would rather not have this conversation, but I think it's worth putting this on the table. What happens down the road? You don't have any heirs who are going to run the company for you. They may control it, but they're not going to run it. Shouldn't you determine who protects or carries on your legacy?" He nodded as I talked. "I'm not really ready to sell," he said. "But you're right. And if I decide to, there isn't anyone I want to sell to but you." He recalled young Indiana Jones and how much he appreciated that I'd given the show a chance, even when it didn't have the ratings. And then he brought up what we'd done with Pixar, which at some point Steve must have spoken to him about. "You did that right," he said. "You took care of them. If I get around to it, you're the only call I'll make." He said something else that I kept in mind in every subsequent conversation we had. "When I die, the first line of my obituary is going to read, 'Star Wars creator George Lucas.' It was so much a part of who he was, which of course I knew. But having him look into my eyes and say it like that underscored the most important factor in these conversations. This wasn't negotiating to buy a business. It was negotiating to be the keeper of George's legacy.
Wow. That's a lot of info. And I did clip some stuff out of here, but you can go in to the Audible and you can pull this book up and you can go to the chapter called Star Wars and listen to everything that he confesses to, Iger confesses to, because he even talks about how they betrayed George Lucas, which basically I didn't share for this because my point was proving that, how long Iger has been talking to George about selling. And it took a while for him to convince George. So by that time, that article in January 2012 came out, George was still on this on the fence about on the fence. He's not a fucking fence rider, but you know what I mean. He is on the fence about selling. And he hasn't made up his mind just yet. And he was bringing in the big three, and he had created treatments and stuff like that, which was a selling point for Disney. George, you know, wrote ideas about a sequel trilogy, about a couple of ideas about, you know, possible sequel trilogies, even though George has stated, like in the interview with James Cameron, that there is no sequel trilogy. There's only the wills that he wanted to make. So so we have all this evidence in front of us, and people still ignore that, and they still go with articles that are maliciously written to make it sound like this is what George really meant, when you go back and hear from basically the horse's mouth on why he sold and stuff like that. And then you go back and listen to, you know, this Ride of a Lifetime biography by Bob Iger, and he basically shares with us like how he was romanticizing George to sell and stuff like that. So that's, George didn't sell because he was fed up with fans. He sold because he knew he's the kind of person that would micromanage. So if he brought someone in, he would still get up into the program and want to do everything himself, because yeah, it's his story. He has every right to be the control freak about his story, right? And so he knew how he was. He wanted to keep his employees employed. He wanted to keep Star Wars for the fans, like continue Star Wars for the fans. And we all know that even up through these negotiations, up to the signing of the deal, that there was a lot of content that still was being created in the multimedia franchise that Star Wars is. We had games that were possibly getting ready to be published and out to the public. We had books, we had comics, we had even possible shows that could have been brought out too. And so it wasn't like Star Wars was on hiatus, like some people say. In fact, that Sawyerism was trying to say that Star Wars, there was nothing being done with Star Wars, that it was a dead product, a dead franchise until Disney got it. So yeah, that Sawyerism girl was saying that not too long ago. And that's not the case. So a lot of things were still being produced and in production when the buyout was occurring. And to say that George sold because of the fans, that's a fallacy. In fact, with all the criticism he got, like from Hollywood, from the critics, media critics, and from these people say, oh, the fans hated George for the prequels. I don't say those people are fans. So these group of people who did not like George for how the direction he took the prequel trilogy, to say that this group of entities of quote unquote fans are the reason why is a fallacy, is a huge, huge fallacy. And so let's go ahead and bring up that clip. And let me go ahead and take this out so I can pull that up. And then we'll get into this crazy meme that's being shared around that's triggering these Star Wars fans, these Star Wars shills. Let's see here. Let me go ahead and find that clip. And then I'll play it. And it's Grizzy's the one that found it and shared it with us. And I basically shared it and made a reaction or a comment to it, a quote retweet about it. And I know it's not that far down in my timeline. Here we go. So it's basically Star Triggered is the one that brought it out. And of course, I'm a part of the Gatekeepers Alliance. And so go over there and subscribe. And there's a lot of things that I'm going to be changing. Like I'm with StreamYards. You have in your media assets, if you guys don't know about StreamYards, it's the platform I use to create live, be live with you guys and stuff like that. You have brands that you can click on. So you can have brand 1, brand 2, or you can name your brand. Like I have Babe de Menace that's still up here that I got to get rid of when I used to help produce Babe de Menace. Queen's Council, HollowNet Journal. So you can have 3 different brands for, I don't know how many brands up there. And so I can have CapChat brands with all the clips and all the intros and outros I need for that. And then for Cantina Nights can be another one where I click on that, and there I will have all the tools I need just specifically for the show and stuff. So I am going to spend some time to create new intros, outros, clips and stuff pertaining to the brands and stuff, so that I can properly give you guys content that pertains for that. So I can give you a new intro and outro that's pertaining to Cantina Night and all that. So I'm excited about that. So let me go ahead and get this going here. And many of you guys may have seen this already and may have watched this video on live on Mr. Grizzly's channel, and even his breakdown of it earlier today that he shared. But I'm going to share it here. And it's always good to give our differing opinions and views on there, because I break things down my way. He breaks things down under the shills and how the shills are defending Kennedy. And it's a great video he did today. And so we have our varying perspectives of this. And so that's what I love about the Gatekeepers Alliance, is because we all we're not an echo chamber. We're not an echo chamber. And also Assassins, Babe to Menace, and Queen's Council were good times, lots of laughs. Yes, it was. And I love the time with the ladies that I did spend with for Babe to Menace and Queen's Council. It was so much fun to sit down and laugh and joke and talk about crazy shit and stuff like that. All right, so let's get into this here.
Star Wars fans are mean to everybody. They were so mean to George Lucas. There he is. Look how sad he is. Look how sad he is, getting $4 billion. Oh, so sad. I mean, by the way, he did a bad job too. Let's be honest. And so he left. He was like, it's not fun anymore. And he left. Star Wars fans are mean to everybody. They were so mean to George Lucas.
All right. All right. So he did a bad job. Oh my gosh, that voice down. Yeah, he did a bad job. So she doesn't say specifically what at. She says when it comes to Star Wars, he did a bad job too. And then she goes on and says reason why she almost said why he got fired. It's so funny how you could hear that coming out, and then she had to switch her verbiage here. And so again, she's very vague about it. She didn't, and everybody's using the prequel trilogy in defense of what she said here and how bad George is. Oh, the prequel trilogy, that's why. And I'm like, no, he's telling his story. So where are you comparing George telling his story, or what are you comparing George's story to say he did a bad job? Because with Disney and even with the EU, yes, I'm going to go there. With the EU and Disney, you compare it to George's story to know if it's on track or not, or if it's in sync with what George wanted to tell, right? And his rules and stuff like that. But George, he's the one that created the foundation to Star Wars. And so what does she compare George to why he did bad telling his story? Because there's no other prequel trilogy story to compare George's prequel trilogy story to say it's bad. There's no other OT story. And basically there's no other saga to compare George to say he did a bad job. Without George, there would be no franchise. Sad to say not sad, but yeah, I guess you could say sad to say without George, we wouldn't be talking right now about how bad Kennedy screwed up the legacy of George Lucas's Star Wars, right? There's nothing under George. There's no other story told outside of George's story to compare it to say he's done bad. He was the original creator to Star Wars. Let's see here. Attack Star Wars fans for being mean.
He is. Look how sad he is. Look how sad he is, getting $4 billion. Oh, so sad.
See how such a bitch she is? That was such a bitch mood for her to say that. I could pull up, and I didn't. You know what? Did I? No, I didn't. I could pull up one of our Iger statement in his Ride of a Lifetime biography about talking about George and how he looked when he was signing his story, his lifeblood, I guess you can say, Star Wars or Lucasfilm, to them. You know, I think I have it. Let me go ahead and remove her face from here. I think I have it. I think I did share it before I went to bed last night. Because I put together, I'm comprising a history of George Lucas of Star Wars or Lucasfilm, and I'm using clips from Bob Iger's Star Wars chapter for it. So let me see, and I think I did share that actual clip. So let me find it here real quick. I think. Maybe not. No, I didn't. Wait. Here's a clip. Oh, no, I didn't. I thought I put it up here and I thought I shared it, but oh, yes, I did. All right. All right. So we're going to listen to this since we're at it to disprove what she was saying. Oh, boo hoo. He's just so sad. Her being what a fucking bitch. What a fucking bitch. Yeah, I made money because he's not going to give away his franchise for free. What the fuck? All right. Share screen. And when I listened to what Iger had to say about George and Star Wars and stuff, George was asking for more money than what they wanted to give him. And they came up with the $4 billion.
On October 30th, 2012, George came to my office, and we sat at my desk and signed an agreement for Disney to buy Lucasfilm. He was doing everything he could not to show it, but I could tell in the sound of his voice and the look in his eyes how emotional it was for him. He was signing away Star Wars after all. And he was disappointed that his story was being discarded. I'd been so careful since our first conversation not to mislead him in any way, and I didn't think I had now, but I could have handled it better. I should have prepared him for the meeting with JJ and Michael and told him about our conversations, that we felt it was better to go in another direction. I could have talked through this with him and possibly avoided angering him by not surprising him. Now, in the first meeting with him about the future of Star Wars, George felt betrayed, and while this whole process would never have been easy for him, we'd gotten off to an unnecessarily rocky start.
All right. So this right here goes with how George was when signing over his baby to Lucasfilm, to Disney, to Iger. Now imagine if Iger wasn't the CEO of Disney during this whole time, maybe George wouldn't have sold, because he had faith in Iger too, which is sad because we just heard here how they betrayed George and how George felt and how they got off to a rocky start. And ever since then, it's been a rocky for them, all of them. Like throughout the whole time period, you know, we may have seen George may have gone to the studios during a production or whatever to see what's going on and what have you. But he also talked about how it's not his Star Wars, how Disney doesn't get Star Wars, how they don't get the Force, and all this talk here, all these little hits against Disney about his baby, about Star Wars, about how they don't understand and stuff like that. So I think it's very important, and this is going to be one of those productions, these videos that's going to take a while for me to put together. And I'm going back to like his interview with Charlie Rose that I shared with you guys here, and other sources too, and comprising everything, putting them all in proper sync with what Iger said in the chapter Star Wars and what George said about the selling of Star Wars. All of this, I'm doing this history of Lucasfilm or Star Wars and how it became as we see it today. And this is more behind the scenes. And then also I'm going to put in there how these creators, these quote unquote creators like JJ and all the way to Leslie Headland, you know, gaslit the fans, and how they led the campaign on anti-EUism against Star Wars fans and those longtime fans that kept Star Wars going when there was no movie productions and stuff like that. So I'm comprising all this together. It's going to take a while. I was hoping by now I would have it done, but I don't. Yeah, I'm always working. Yes, I'm always working, but I think it's very important to share this historical references to the fall of Lucasfilm. That's what I'm going to call it, the fall of Lucasfilm. I don't think that Lucasfilm is as it was when George was at the reins and when he built it and before he sold it. And I don't think it is Lucasfilm in its entirety. I think that it's just in name only, just like Star Wars is in name only. Hey there, Chio Wesley. How are you doing? And so I'm putting all this stuff together. And so when I have these Disney shills go at me on Twitter, because Twitter is a lot where I speak out against the direction of Disney when it comes to Lucasfilm and Star Wars. And I can even probably put some of the Indiana Jones in there because I think that's relevant. It's under Lucasfilm. It's not Disney, but it's just a bit of evidence that goes towards what I'm comprising and putting together for you guys. And with that being said, let's go ahead and segue into this next thing I wanted to share. This is so fucking funny. I swear to God. So many of you guys, if you're on Twitter, you may have seen this going around as of lately since the rumor mill brought back Kennedy is gone again. Kennedy's gone again. She's gone again. And this is going around and this is triggering a lot of people. But then there are also quote unquote people who are EU people who are also using EU to defend Disney canon. They are disingenuously using it to defend Disney canon and our Disney Star Wars. I'm just reading what it said in front of me. I don't think it's canon. It's not canon. It's in a name only. In fact, I need to write that on Twitter again because I know that triggers some of these shills and stuff like that. So number one, so this is expanded universe versus Disney canon. However, it should be George Lucas era versus Disney canon because then you can throw in the movies, right? Because we know Disney Star Wars goes against the very foundation of George Lucas's movies, right? Soul Assassin says Lucasfilm is a shill of the former self. A shill of the former self. Imagine Star Wars as a whole as Anakin Skywalker turning into Vader. Let's see here. So number one, expand. This is the expanded universe one. Expands upon the original trilogy. Well, it also expands upon, and see, I don't know why this is post Return of the Jedi stuff. Maybe because a lot of the content under Disney is that as well. But expands upon the original trilogy, which it also expands upon the PT and also has pre-PT lore. And then under Disney Star Wars, number one, cheapens the original trilogy. So one, the expanded universe expands on George Lucas era, and I'm going to go back and just change this all. And then under Disney, it cheapens the original trilogy, which I agree because first of all, The Force Awakens is a rehash of the OT, specifically A New Hope. And then the Last Jedi basically is anti-prequel trilogy and then also anti its own continuity in a sense. Number two, classic characters live eventful, successful lives and die heroes if they die at all. And number two, under Disney Star Wars, number two, classic characters live inglorious, failing lives and die prematurely. So I don't know specifically all about that, but I will add to this. And this, I think I want to go back and change this for this is the classic characters. Yeah, I'll take that back. They do live inglorious, failing lives and die prematurely. Yes, they do. Sorry, I was thinking about their own characters. But this is the classical or the original three. The original OG3. They regress the characters, like Han Solo. He went through a lot in his hero's journey in the OT. And when you look at him in the EU and why he wanted to form a family and all this other stuff, there's a lot of growth within him. When you get to the New Jedi Order, like what he's known as a stable family member in his life throughout most of his life, Chewie, he goes into the negative aspect, and he has to reconcile with a lot of stuff. However, he doesn't necessarily give up on his family, nor does Leia give up on him. And that's a big difference. And I can't wait to talk more about that as we read through the New Jedi Order. And then let's see here. Number 3, the expanded universe, or George Lucas era of Star Wars. Written by people with a genuine love for Star Wars. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to HoloNet's making of the New Jedi Order, there's 7 parts to it, you will clearly see how much effort and love of the franchise these writers have towards the movies, towards the lore, all of that. That's apparent there. Very much apparent. And then under the Disney lore, number 3, written by opportunists, corporate higher ups. So we presented this when it started coming out about the whiteboard with boxes to check off and ideals to write in and stuff like that. And how they bring in people who are not fans of or even knows anything about Star Wars to write and be creatives within their timeline. And so that's very apparent. Number 4, under George Lucas era, expanded universe. Checked and approved by Lucas. So there's a lot of things that George was involved in, whether it is people are like, okay, I have these main points that needs to be verified by Lucas himself to make sure I get this shit right. And if Lucas at the time is not available, he had hired people he trusted to do the job for him because they understood what George wanted, his rules, and the direction he wanted to go with the lore and the franchise. And then he also worked directly with some of the authors too. So many people, these anti-EU people, will say George didn't care about that. He knows nothing about the lore or the EU, and he never worked with the authors. No, he worked with, he helped with, and if he was not available, he had trusted people that signed off on major projects for him. Number 4, under Disney Star Wars lore, goes against Lucas's stated intentions, and that right there is basically enough already. They tossed, and we listened to Iger already. They didn't use anything that George gave them, and they wanted to tell their own story. They didn't really want to tell George's, and in fact, even Kennedy said that they're going to steer away from the Skywalker family. So there you go. Expanding universe, George Lucas era, number 5, wholly apolitical. And I think this right here is where a lot of these shills are like, oh, well, Star Wars is always political, even the expanded universe, blah, blah, blah. And I think what they're saying is that they are not political in the sense of inserting realism or our world politics in. This is something I would correct on here because it's very vague, and it does give it is an opening for these anti-EU people to attack. Number 5, under Disney Star Wars, pushes cliche agendas with undertones. And so again, and number 5 on both basically goes into inserting our world politics in, and where pre-Disney there was themes and allegories, right? And these were very ambiguous or vague to where anyone of any generation can say, oh, that kind of sounds familiar or similar to what's going on in our world today. Whereas in Disney Star Wars, it is basically about the current political climate right now. And that one is timeless, one is not. and you can already tell which one's timeless and which one has a basic expiration date on it. Number 6, George Lucas era expanded universe. New characters relate to established and beloved ones. So the new characters that are brought in can relate, or they're the villains, and they have these agendas against them and stuff like that per the plot or what's going on in the timeline. But these new characters don't overshadow the original characters, nor do the original characters overshadow the new characters. There's something to say about these authors under the expanded universe when they brought in new characters. And mind you, probably Matt Wilkins will probably say Cornhorn, Alora, and so if he doesn't like Cornhorn because he thinks that Matthew Stover was trying to make him the next Luke Skywalker, what have you. It's, I get what he's saying here, but there's a lot of these characters that are brought in, like Kyle Katarn, that weren't put in to overshadow what the established characters and, be Mary Sue's or Gary Sue's and stuff like that. Number 6 for the Disney Star Wars. New characters are an ensemble of boring fan fiction tier heroes. So that one I would expand on or rewrite with that just to be more concise. But what they are saying here is that a lot of them are wooden, or they're Mary Sue's that they're well liked. A show can be about the main character like Kenobi, and in reality it's not. So that I would reword. Number 7, George Lucas era expanded universe. Stories have depth and originality, even with the occasional dud. So there's a lot of depth and expansion and originality, even though it's still adhering to the rules and that's established under George, and a lot of depth. The New Jedi Order had to go outside the box in a sense. And there we see dark times, like darker than people think. New Jedi Order is darker than Andor. I said it here. It is darker than Andor. And you can even say Dark Forces is darker than Andor. With the depth and originality, still adhered to George's vision. And yes, there's hiccups along the way. When you have a franchise that's a multimedia franchise, there are going to be hiccups. And they're going to have to go back and correct that stuff. And they did. And just before the buyout, they were also beginning to course correct TCW. I wish that we wouldn't be at the state we are right now so I can witness it. But we are where we're at, and that's all I could say. TCW belongs with Disney Star Wars. It doesn't belong in the George Lucas era of Star Wars. So number 7 under Disney Star Wars. Story is lazily copied beat for beat from older Star Wars movies. And I just said that earlier with The Force Awakens. And then you have them cherry picking and trying to copy stories from the expanded universe when they are expanding on their own stuff. So there's no originality. You could say that, Rian Johnson tried to be original with The Last Jedi. You can pick out a lot of things that are copying from Empire Strikes Back. All right, number 8, George Lucas era expanded universe. All Star Wars material fits perfectly into this continuity from 1978 to 2014. And I understand why they say 2014, because there were still stories coming out that were quote unquote put under the Legends label that is part of the expanded universe pre-Disney. And they did fit perfect. If you want to see how perfect they fit, and again, there were hiccups, like I said, from number 7. There are always going to be hiccups. There's always going to be a little bit of like missteps that they have to go back and correct later. That happens. But Sue Rastroni and later Leland Shee did a great job on documenting and keeping the continuity in line. And so the Essential Reader's Guide and my poor thing is like falling apart. I need to get it rebound. And it shares how well these stories go in with each other. Again, there's always going to be little hiccups. I'm not saying it's perfect, like, oh, well, it seamlessly ties into with each other. But that reader's companion, the essential reader's companion, or whatever it's called, shares. You can look through that and you can read through that and see how well they tie together, how well they go together. And they, when Disney acquired Lucasfilm, Star Wars in general, they even stated, oh, well, we're gonna make everything a single story, one continuity. It's gonna be surpass what George and his company did prior to the sellout and stuff like that. And I can go back and do my research and show just on its own continuity how bad their continuity is. Not pitting it up against George's movies or even the expanded universe portion of the media, of the lore, but by its own merit. And share with you guys, or in general, how bad they are keeping their continuity, track of their continuity. So this right here, number 8, Disney Star Wars. Disney scrapped 30 years of material to replace it with what we see now. And so number 8 goes with what I said before I even, came to Disney Star Wars portion of number 8. I can go back and share a lot within the 10 years. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. Whoa. I can go back and share like how bad their continuity is, and compared to what the expanded universe has done. So number 9, George Lucas era of expanded universe, scrapped by Disney, which we know already because they wanted a clean slate. They deemed it non-canon, even though they can't, like, one can't declare it. Only the person that can declare it is the creator themselves. It is the first historical written. It's the first written historical events of Star Wars, and it always remained that way. What you're seeing here with Disney is their version or their revisionist history, and that is in name only. And people don't understand that. One is the official, one is in name only. Disney is in name only. Number 9, quote unquote, the official canon. No, because the official canon is what came before. Theirs is in name only. So with that being said, I wanted to share this because, like I said, there's some things in here that that are written in a way that can have the Disney shills counter, in a sense. And so I would like to rewrite this. I think I could do a lot more better than what is here. I don't know who the author of this meme is or whatever, but some of the words here just set up a easy way for these Disney shills to counter. But what is funny is how this has been triggering them. And then also those who say, oh, I'm fans of the expanded universe, and how they're using the EU to defend Disney lore. Which I say, you're not really EU fans then. Because as you heard me say, no, the EU is not perfect. I mean, there are some things that they had to go back and, smooth out and stuff like that. There's like, what, 40 years or like 30, under 40 years of continuity of lore being written. Of course, there's going to be hiccups. Whereas Disney Star Wars is like just over 10. And it should be easier to keep continuity because they started with a clean slate, right? There should be no excuses for them to have mishaps and mistakes and stuff like that if they're keeping track of their continuity, right? I mean, didn't Leland, like, when he was hired, he was responsible for creating the database, putting everything online, electronic, from what Sue Stoney did on paper in binders, right? So he transferred all of that into a database he calls, the Holocron database or whatever. And it should be a lot more easy. Oh, wait. But that's not being used anymore. So now they have a clean slate. They have a platform where they can start entering all their continuity on, with the example of what Leland Chee did for George Lucas for the expanded universe. So how can they get shit wrong? All of that should be just like a type of way of like, where was so-and-so during this time frame? Because I'm going to use him later on and I want to refer back to his past. Or what planets do we have? Or what are the climates of this? Or whatever, and they're doing a horrible job at it. Horrible job. All right, so I wanted to go to this, and I broke this one down here on Twitter, and I don't think I'm going to break it down here. I don't know. Maybe you guys want to hear it. I need to bounce. Have a good one, everybody. Then bounce. Then bounce. See you later, Vex. Thank you for hanging out with us. We have 75 beautiful souls watching. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are talking about Jaina and Kipteron and stuff in the chat. That's pretty cool. Love it. So I've seen this within the last 6 months being used as a counter towards the EU in tandem with something like this. And I did break this down. Maybe I'll pull it up on Twitter like I did the other one. Let me see here. Stop screen. Let me go ahead and find it. It shouldn't be hard to find because I just did it yesterday or whatever. And I did trigger a couple shills about that too. It's quite funny. It's amazing what I post and how these shills get triggered so hard and stuff like that. Oh my God. It's crazy, unbelievable, or maybe it is believable. I mean, they are shills. All right, so let me go ahead and bring this up here. And I did it for the fun of it because, like, I've seen so many times people use this as an anti-EU rhetoric against the EU, basically. So we'll break this down. Have a spectacular day. Yes, thank you, Jordan, for wishing him that. Now I hear Feige is taking over Marvel Comics. Oh, I think I've seen something on that too. Let me see here. All right. So what I said here, and here we have the expanded universe fake versus the fake woke EU. So basically Bandem versus Del Rey. But again, New Jedi Order is under Del Rey. And then Thrawn Trilogy is under Bantam. So this is where I'm like, you guys need to do your research before you start doing this shit. So let's get into this. But this is what I said. None of the stories were abandoned or scrapped by Bantam Spectra. All stories were owned by Lucasfilm and Lucas Books, no matter the publishing group licensed. Also get images correct when you try to make such a statement, as New Jedi Order is under Del Rey, while Thrawn Trilogy is under Bantam. Comics weren't under Bantam or Del Rey. All those under Bantam linked to other books, including those from Del Rey. As for the quote-unquote woke, no one complained about quote-unquote woke back then or now, as it was known Star Wars was in-universe diverse. So we'll get into this. And then I also did this. I couldn't edit at the time before I started, adding to the thread. So I made this down here. I can't edit for whatever reason. No matter the publishing group, they all had to fit George's story rules and world building. George and Lucasfilm worked with authors no matter the publishing group. So I broke it down one by one. Let me bring this closer. Here you go. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. My favorite is, why are you so mad about it? It's a story about space wizards, right? All right. It's nonsense. Mara Jade never elevated above Luke. Right. Correct. So number 1. So purely based on Lucas's vision and characters. This is the expanded universe pre-Bantam. And Fake Woke EU section says, number 1, elevates Dawn characters to the prominence of Lucas's. Isn't that crazy how they say that? And it's funny how they use comics under Marvel and stuff and Dark Horse and stuff like that, but don't mention them whatsoever. But anyways, that's just what I noticed too. Both, number 1 for both of them, both based on George's story, and no character was elevated over the big 3. In fact, they enhanced the story and the big 3's journey. Number 2, under the expanded universe section here, delicately crafted alongside the original trilogy. Under Bantam, produced years after the film to retcon pilot plot details, holes. All right, so this is what I said on this. Whoever wrote this either has never written the EU or just wants to stir up trouble or reactions or whatever. But I felt, since I've been seeing this go on for a while now, I thought I would just break it down a little bit more, because people do use this, anti-EU people do use this as a propaganda against us, right? 2, both were crafted around the big 3, unless they focus on another character. So we have like solo books like Under for Corn Horn. There's all these standalone books for a certain character. Also there's a series that doesn't necessarily have any of the big 3, like X-Wing. It focuses on a movie characters, Wedge Antilles, but not necessarily. It like focuses on the Rogue Squadron and Wraith Squadron and what's going on during that time. Also, there are Del Rey novels years after the Return of the Jedi, as well. And yes, there may have been retcons from minor inconsistencies that was apparent under all its media. By the way, post Return of the Jedi isn't the only era of EU. Funny how this meme image, how this meme image and the OP only focused on post Return of the Jedi. And number 3, under the expanded universe column, classic characters go on small side adventures that don't diminish the original trilogy. And under the Fake Woke EU section, number 3, huge events happen that diminish the original trilogy. And I don't understand where they're getting this from, like small side quests versus big events. Small side quests that doesn't hurt the OT, but big quest does. There's no reference to that whatsoever. So what I said for that number 3 pertaining to both of them, what events diminish the OT? When you have Trusat Bakhura that occurs hours after Return of the Jedi and Rebel Dawn that ties into A New Hope, X-Wing novels that expands Rogue Squadron, which forms in the OT. And these are all Bantam era novels. So there you go. Let me see what you guys are saying. Elevates only characters over everyone. Correct. It's nonsense. Mara was never elevated above Luke. Correct. Yeah. 76 beautiful souls in here. Thank you for watching. Okay, let's get to number 4. Under the expanded universe section. Let me see if I can click on this to get the whole thing. There we go. Oh, I put up the wrong one. Okay, I thought I put up the one that I made sure it wasn't cut out. Damn it. How come you're doing this to me? It's not letting me zoom in or out. Let me get out of this. Number 4. Here we go. All right, so number 4. More space opera than sci-fi, and all Star Wars material fits. So this is under Expanded Universe 1, number 4, and under the Fake Woke EU, number 4. Overly concerned with realism and DEI Corellians. So what do you think they're going here? And I was ridiculed by, oh, this is just you take everything serious. This is just a joke. But you know what? When a joke or whatever, that's supposed to be a joke or a parody or whatever, is used as anti-EU rhetoric, of course, I'm going to go ahead and clarify all this bullshit, right? So let's go on with this. Number 4, pertaining to both sides of these columns here. Oh, shit. What happened here? Where'd it go? Okay. I love it when it jumps on me like this. Okay. Here we go. All of it was fashioned under the theme of family space opera, which was science fiction, to the point that we have Skywalker descendants 127 years after A New Hope. None was focused on realism. And what I mean by realism is that it was our reality was not put into there. Everything was fiction. There was themes and allegories and stuff that pertained, that helped make the story its own story under its own little world, I guess you could say. What the fuck is DIE Corellian? And then I can't take that serious. Where did it show Corellians using DEI as a hiring method? So we all know what DEI is. So yeah, I've seen so many versions of these. Laugh out loud. Yeah, it's correct. So that right there, I was like, where did that come from? Like, where did this DEI Corellian bullshit come from? So let's see here. Number 5. Under the EU column, 5, all Star Wars material fits perfectly into this this continuity until 1991. And under the Fake Woke EU one, number 5, Batum Spectre scrapes 10 plus years of material to replace it with this. So, again, whoever wrote this is fucking crazy. Maybe never read the EU, is stirring up trouble, making an anti-EU thing that they will use against us, saying like it was disorganized in this way and the authors never worked together, blah, 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 blah. So here's number 5. Actually, continuity wasn't being tightened up completely until 1991. And if you go into the history of the EU, once Heir to the Empire came out, the officials under Lucasfilm realized how much the fans love the continuity tie-ins, like this historical timeline of Star Wars. However, Sue Mastroni was still keeping track of continuity pre-1991, but it wasn't tightened up completely until 1991, if that makes sense. So you have to go back in time of when Sue Mastroni first started, keeping track of the EU and thinking it's important for everything to tie in. In fact, George even was given Western Game books and talked about continuity tie-ins with the authors pre-1991. But the success, and this I'll give to Thrawn. Like I said, the Thrawn Timothy Zahn, but I still think the trilogy is overrated. I love it for what it is. I think it's overrated, but I do give credit where credit's due. And because of how popular and loved the Thrawn trilogy is, it really set precedents for Lucasfilm to tie in or tighten up continuity even further. So yes, it was still a focus beforehand, yet the Marvel comics were deemed non-canon due to continuity errors. So that's just a bit of history right there. We know that until if characters or something was brought in to the continuity, into the canon part of it, then that storyline was canon, I guess you can say. And that's, for example, is Lumaya that I'm looking at right here. Number 6, none of Del Rey published Lucasfilm novels were scrapped. Oh, let me read down here. So under the Expanded Universe section, for number 6 scrapped by Bantam Spectra, and number 6 for fake woke EU, official expanded universe. So none of Del Rey published Lucasfilm novels were scrapped by Bantam, and when Bantam got the contract. Everything published is considered the official expanded universe unless noted, right? So right here, they're trying to say, Bantam Spectra never considered anything before it or even after it or what have you, or even under other properties like Marvel at the time or Dark Horse at the time, never considered them canon or never used and stuff. However, if you look through and we're reading through, and I have to publish my continuity chronicle here pretty soon that I've been working on. I put it on the back burner due to, having to travel to be a family and stuff like that. But it's from Tatooine Ghosts, and I'm going to do some for New Jedi Order. But the continuity chronicles is about how all these are tied into historically, like a historical timeline. And Tatooine Ghosts is a big example of that. And then so I ended with this. Again, why is the focus only on post-Return of the Jedi media? Yet we know the EU had many eras. This is completely disingenuous. So I chose to do this because people use this as an anti-EU tool against us and stuff like that. DEI, bankruptcy incarnate. Let me see here. They tightened the continuity. They brought Black Hole from the comic strip back in the continuity with Shadows of Mindor. Never mind Lumaya in the novels. This person did not do their homework. I know, and that's the whole reason why I did this. Even though it could have been a joke, anti-EU people do use this as evidence. And so for myself, I think it's very important to break all this down because there's so many people that will think that this is true. And then go and this misinformation rhetoric will be presented out there. And of course, then I have to keep countering it. And in fact, I'm pretty sure I'll still will counter it, even though I made this statement here and broke it down. So with all the stuff that's going on here today within the week that I, was gone and, and stuff like that, a lot of shit has happened. And it seems to happen when I'm not available to talk about it. I am now. So never fall for, unless it's officially stated, never fall for Kennedy is gone, fired, retiring, until you hear the official statement. Don't be one of those sheeples that just jump onto it because you want to celebrate and then start speculating, oh, well, Filoni's going to be put in, or this and that person's going to be put in. Don't fall for that shit. Go about it smart. Don't go about it brain dead as a sheeple. Do your fucking homework. Seriously, do your homework. And then also too, with that rhetoric, to defend Kennedy, you see these shills and these people who will bash George or his company or the authors he brought in, the EU or whatever, to make Disney or their officials look better. Fight against those people. Even if you agree with them on other factors. It's okay to disagree and call out bullshit from someone that you even know. Because I think it's very disingenuous. It's dishonest, basically, to try to throw George under the bus for the sake of Kennedy. And it's not just Kennedy's fault about the direction of Lucasfilm and Star Wars. It's Bob Iger. It's Disney. She has her ideas and stuff, but a lot of the stuff can't be implemented unless her higher ups, her boss, approves of it. So don't fall into that rhetoric. And then with that, you see this chain of events that occur to even people who are expanded universe, supporters that will use the expanded universe against or use it to defend, in a sense, Disney by saying, oh, it's bad, or it wasn't all, it was horribly made, or there's a lot of contradictions, or this or that or this, then you got to question that as well. Even when presented something where it's like, oh yeah, that is a contradiction, I will not use that rhetoric to defend Disney. I will say, yes, that's understood. You can look it up in the comics, essential comics book guide that I have on my bookshelf. You can use the reader's companion. You can do research and you can say, yeah, they did screw up there. However, they corrected it in this source here. So that's not, it's that occurrence there is false because it was rectified here. So doing all your homework. Now, many people want to hope grift and they want Star Wars to be great again, but for what circumstances? It's still under Disney. Disney still has its agenda. And as George said, they don't understand Star Wars. So people who are hope grifting for this, I will say they don't understand Star Wars either. And I'll stand on that. I will stand on that hill. If you like it, well, more power to you. We all like bad things. There's those, what do you call it? How do you call it? When you know it's bad, but you like it anyways, and you acknowledge it's bad, right? And it's just the fun of just watching it or whatever. I don't know. I forget what the fuck it's called, like that little saying it's called. But anyways, sure, like what you like. But don't pretend that it has the creator at heart or it has the lore at heart. You like Disney Star Wars. Good. I like the real Star Wars under George Lucas era. And that's where. Guilty pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Dystopian. I'm like, I can't think of that name. That's the guilty pleasure. Yeah, guilty pleasure. Thank you, Anakin Batsy. The guilty pleasure. Guilty pleasure. Sure, go along with the guilty pleasures. A lot of people have guilty pleasures with Acolyte, right? Those who are like, bring Acolyte back or whatever, whatever. So there you go. So I thought I'd get on here with you guys for Cantina Nights and talk about the latest news that's going under Disney Star Wars and break down some stuff and, just remind you, be smart about everything. And if you hear another rumor coming this September, October about Kennedy retiring or being fired, do your homework. That's why I had a chance while I was gone to sit down and make a video on it real quick. But I did my research. I did a few comments about it on Twitter, discussed it behind the scenes with some people, and left it alone and watched everybody else hope grift over it. Oh, Star Wars safe now. She's leaving. And I watched it all go down. And then I thought, okay, I'm rested up. Might as well do a live with you guys, even though it's not calf chat. Calf chat takes a little while to put together because we have a specific lore topic that we talk about and a cringe factor topic we talk about. So I wasn't going to try to do all that while getting home and, and easing myself back into my home life and all that. So I gave myself some grace. But this right here was easy to put together, easy to talk about. Because I already did some of the homework and posted it on Twitter X. Yeah, Kennedy killed the Willow franchise. Disney killed the Willow franchise, yes. Now, Bob Iger will make Kennedy do this until she's 90. Wow. I despise The Mandalorian. It's a bad ripoff of Lone Wolf and Cub, and that is supposed to the high watermark of Disney, a fanfic version of Boba Fett. Okay. Hey there, Melissa Lord. How are you doing? We're getting ready to close out now. So if you're just tuning in, I'm sorry. I'll stay on for another 15 minutes with you guys and go from there. So those who are channel members on March 9th, let me see, make sure that I got the right day. I got it on my calendar, but it's not in front of me, so I'm pulling it up right now. And let's see here. People are, I hate when people text you when you're trying to click on something and you click on the notification, it takes you to the text. So here we go. Channel members. So if you're not a channel member yet, I am planning on awarding channel membership here pretty soon. But on March 9th, we are having the watch party or the listen party for Dark Forces, a Soldier for the Empire. And that's going to be 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. And of course, my mods are going to be joining. They're going to be sent the link so they can join us for that, since they come in and they are dedicated to being here. Even when I do surprise lives with you guys, they show up. So as a way of just like awarding and saying thank you, my mods will be here with us watching. So are listening too. So it's going to be a listen and discussion and chat about the Dark Empire, not Dark Empire, Dark Forces, Dark Forces, Soldier for the Empire. So I can't wait to sit down with you guys and listen to that first novel of the trilogy, or the novella of the trilogy. Since we have Andor coming up, and it is like a knockoff to that type of story and stuff like that, and those events during that time frame, I thought it'd be very important to sit down and have a membership listen, quote unquote, watch party with you guys and discuss it in the chat. And so hopefully you guys can join us, and those who have been on the fence about becoming a channel member, do it. Don't be on that fence no more. Don't be a fence rider. Hey, no. And so thank you so much, you guys, for your continued support. And I will award, I think I'm going to do an award for like all subscribers and stuff like that here soon, including channel members. I think I'm going to do that like quarterly for the whole subscribers of the channel to join me on a special watch or listen party. That'll be quarterly, but channel members will have more rewards, closer together. So I'm planning that stuff out with you guys. And then I'm also going to start an art channel for myself, but I'm going to segue sharing my arts, painting experiences with you on this channel, and then segue it to the new channel. So then you guys can go and subscribe to that channel, and then I'll start doing stuff there. And that's going to be specifically painting channel, but that's going to have all aspects of my different type of art styles of painting and themes and stuff like that. But for the segue, I will probably do a lot of my Star Wars paintings and stuff here. And then I probably, when I do something Star Wars for the painting channel, I think I will have live on both channels, because you can do that. There's ways you can, have lives on both your channels and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that, because I know that that's something that people are interested in is, watching creatives and stuff like that, because I am a creative here when it comes to Star Wars. I put together all these lore information for you guys. I do the PowerPoints. I try to do clips and stuff like that. So just as a way of sharing a little bit more about myself with you guys, I will have that. So I have 91 beautiful people here. Thank you so much. Hit that like button, become channel member, or subscribe, or both. OG's gonna be the Bob Ross of art. There's no accents, just you being an idiot with your painting. Oh my God, and Abu Nas, another channel member, is here. I love being a channel member. Thank you so much. So thank you guys for hanging out with me for Cantina Nights. Again, like I said, I'm just returning back from being with family in the Midwest and taking care of stuff. So there was no cap chat because, again, the prep time there's some time and work put into the prep time for calf chat. And it's less than putting a whole video together on certain subjects and stuff, but there's still that time. And so I just wanted to completely just integrate back into my family life, into my home, and rest. However, I wanted to make sure that I got through these current events that's going on with Disney, Star Wars, and stuff like that. Let's see here what you guys have to say. So next week for Calf Chat, we are going to get into some more New Jedi Order lore, and I think it is in the State of the Galaxy. I have now entered into the Balance Point novel. So we're moving on into the timeline of the invasion. I have to see, did I do the invasion yet? No, I didn't. I have to go back and see. No, I did Vergere. So I need to do the invasion. So we'll probably start with the invasion point and where we are at in the invasion of the Vong in the galaxy, since we're in Balance Point. And oh my God, Balance Point, holy crap. Like these rereads are so fucking amazing, because then you already know what to expect. And then so whatever you missed, you're more open to catch. And I think Star Wars Marvel purist Justin has finished Balance Point. So he passed me up on the reading, which is fine. I did take the novel with me, and I did read, get some reading time in when I needed some alone time. And so that's good. I'm glad I took it with me as well. And so I can't wait to get into that portion of the invasion of the Vong and what's going on during that time period as well. But as always, if there's something that I didn't cover between Vector Prime and Balance Point and you want to hear or discuss, let me know. Again, it's not book reviews. I want to get into the meat and potatoes of the timeline as I read along and break things down for you guys. Jordan Star Wars says the invasion comics could have been better. New Jedi Order is incredible. Yeah, they were kind of a wah wah wah. I mean, there's some good stuff in there. And then Jordan says, read some source book, reference books, novel, comics, research some of the information on Lucasfilm back in the day. Correct. I'm always doing that, sir. And I'm pretty sure you probably are too. And smash that like button. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So let me put this on here. So we covered all of this here. We broke this shit down too, which could have been written a lot better. And I think I'll do that later. Yeah. So if there's any other thing that you see that is used for an anti-EU, anti-George rhetoric, tag me in it, send it to me, so I can put it in my files and debunk. So with that being said, we're going to close here. We got close to 100 people here right now. Thank you so much for hopping in and listening and joining and hearing me rant and go over and break down stuff. I think it's very important because the way we're going and the way it's always gone, the defense of Disney Star Wars is always about tearing down George and the lore content that was created under him. And it gets so fucking tiring. But I think it's very important to revisit and debunk this bullshit, even if it's a repetitive one, because sometimes there's something else that I find that pertains to that subject, and it just enhances the counter even more. So thank you guys again so much for tuning in. Be vigilant. Do your research. Don't fall for the Kennedy's gone rhetoric unless it's an official statement where it's from her or her associates or her handlers, I guess you could say, or even Lucasfilm. So don't fall for that bullshit. As much as we want to see some direction or change going on, no matter what type of change you're inviting me, I'd rather just have Star Wars halted and no more production out of it for a very long time. Basically, no more Star Wars, because it needs a complete reset, pause and reset. That's how I see it. Some people want it just to be good under Disney. I disagree. I don't think Disney will ever, ever understand Star Wars for anything to be good under it whatsoever. And with George clarifying that that's how he sees it, it just makes me, it just solidifies my my statement even more. So thank you so much. And like I said, stay vigilant and stay on top of things and enjoy George Lucas era of Star Wars. And cheers to you all for coming in and joining me for Cantina Chat. You guys are amazing, and stay tuned for a new Continuity Chronicle video. It's not a short, it's a little longer than the short, but it basically goes into verses of a novel. And this one's going to be about Tatooine Ghosts and how it foreshadows or it shares historical events from another different era or timeline within the Star Wars lore. So stay tuned to that. My other one was about, my very first one was about Tenebrous Way and predicting the Vong and stuff and Darth Krayt. So there you go. So thank you guys again and have a good day, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Another happy landing.